Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of the Golden Age. This is our series of Warhammer Fantasy battle reports. It is a 2,500 point battle that is fought between my friend Fresh Prince Belair as well as myself. Fresh Prince Belair is bringing House Lainel, the Silvery Host of Caledor, his 2,500 point High Elves army, and I'm fighting with the Garden of Nurgle, my 2,500 point Chaos Legion of Nurgle army. So with that being said, let's go ahead and play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what each of the armies is taking, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Alright, so first off, let's go and talk about our scenario rules. We are playing a battle line scenario. It consists of standard deployment rules as well as standard victory conditions. And we're playing this because this is our most typical game of Warhammer and we love playing this style, and you know, that's what most people usually play inside of tournaments and things like that. So with the scenario rules over with, let's go ahead and talk about the battle plan real quick. So here's an overhead shot of the battlefield. As you can see, we are playing at a 4x6 table. My friend Fresh Prince Belair is deployed on the far side of the table, and I'm deployed on the near side of the table. Pretty much what my plan is to march across the battlefield as quickly as I possibly can and try to destroy his units with my own. The reason why is because I am playing a Chaos Legion army. That is the most typical tactic that we play with. We excel at close combat, we have no shooting, and we have some pretty good magic. Especially considering that I am playing a Chaos Legion Nurgle army, I have some pretty awesome buffs that I can use for most of my units. So getting across the battlefield to engage my enemy is a pretty good plan. And the reason why I can possibly do that is because of the Shroudling spell, which is a special bound spell that the special character Festus the Leech Lord Empowered uses. It gives him hard cover for all friendly units within 12 inches of him. So because of that, my opponent will have -2 to hit against me in range combat as well as in close combat. So it kind of gives me some breathing space as well as some cover in order to engage his forces. Not to mention, because Festus the Empowered has special ability rules from Chaos Legion, all the terrain on this battlefield counts as dangerous terrain, so that's pretty much what my plan is. Pretty much I'm going to send my infantry forces marching forward, engage him into close combat, protect my flanks with my War Shrine over the right hand side, same thing with my Nurglings against those Reavers, those Illyrian Reavers, and then hopefully, you know, destroy them that way as well. Alright, so with the battle plan over with, let's go ahead and talk about deployment real quick. As you can see, this is my left-hand flank. Up in the top left-hand corner, that is Hester, the King in yellow. That is my Demon Prince General. He has Chaos Armor, Demonic Flight. He also has the Sword of Striking. He has also got a Charm Shield in order to protect him against artillery attacks. He also has the Dragonbane Gem for additional bonuses against flaming attacks as well. He also has Soul Feeder on him as well, so that way he can heal up across the battlefield. He also has a Chaos Familiar, so that way he has one additional spell as well. And he also has, yeah, that's pretty much all of his demonic gifts as well. On the right hand side, that is the Tallyman. That is a huge unit of 40 Plague Bearers of Nurgle with a leading by Barnabas the Scrivener. That is my Battle Standard Bearer with the Lesser Locus of Virulence. and basically it gives him a 5-up for his poison attacks for that unit. And as you can see here, I've decided to kind of go with a different formation for this unit. I'm experimenting with it. I decided to go 8 figures wide and 5 deep, so that way they have maximum rank bonuses and hopefully last a little bit longer in close combat. Now granted, that does cut down my attacks by a third because I no longer have horde rules in addition to them, so I won't be able to attack with a 3rd rank, but at the same time this unit is designed to be a tar pit unit anyways, and that's exactly what I'm going for on this one. And for the rest of my army, in the center I have the Dustmen, that is a unit of 23 Chaos Warriors of Nurgle. They have shields as well as additional hand weapons, as well as full command. They also have the standard disciplines. They have +1 leadership as well. And leading that unit is Festus, the Leech Lord Empowered. He is the special character from the Chaos Legion rulebook, and he's my level 3 Lord of Nurgle. He's given this unit 5-up regen. He also gives the unit poisonous attacks, not to mention he also has his bound spell Shroudlings, which is really important as well. On the right hand side, that is Horticolic Slimex as well as Mulch. That is my Exalted Hero on a Chaos War Shrine. He's packing a halberd. He also has a dragon helm as well, so that way he has some additional buffs against flaming attacks. And he's also carrying Poisonous Slime as well as Nurgle's Rot as gifts for him as well, to make him a little bit more deadly in close combat. And then of course Mulch is my Chaos War Shrine. And the far right hand side is the Inglorious, that is a unit of 3 Nurglings to watch my right hand flank. Across the battlefield is Fresh Prince Belair with his High Elf army from the Silvery Host of Caledor, House Lainel. On the left hand side, that is his General Tywin Lainel, who's a prince on top of a Star Dragon. He's kitted out with a Star Lance as well as the armor of, I believe it's Fortitude, I think. No, armor of Fortune. It's the one that gives you a Fort ward save as well as being heavy armor. I forgot the name of the magical item. And he's also sitting on a dragon. That's a Star Dragon as well, so those guys are kitted out to kill on the left hand side. Also on the right hand side of that, on top of the hill, we have the Reigns of Caledor, which are 3 Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers. Making up the center of his army is a majority of his infantry units. On the left hand side, those are the Silver Blades. That is a unit of 20 Sword Masters of Hoeth with full command. In the center, that is the Dawn Guard, is a unit of 23 Lothern Sea Guards. Those guys are equipped with bows as well as spears and shields. Also in that unit is Tanis Lainel as well. He is a Sea Helm character who is also a Battle Standard Bearer, and he has the Crown of Command. And finally, on the right hand side, those are the Caledorian Rangers. That's a unit of 15 White Lions of Trace with full command. And that makes up my friend Fresh Prince Belair's center deployment. And on the right hand side, he has a unit of 5 Illyrian Reavers who have already vanguarded up and moved out 12 inches beyond their deployment zone. And off to the far right hand side of the table on his side, and that is the Silver Sentinels. That is a unit of 23 Spearmen with full command. They have shields, hand weapons, as well as spears. And leading that is his mage, Tytos Lainel. He's a level 4 Lord of High Magic. He also is carrying Morian's, I believe how you pronounce his name, Morian's Waste Shard, so that way this unit can ambush later on. So they'll be coming onto the table stop at turn number 2. And to be honest with you, I thought it was kind of controversial that my friend Fresh Prince Belair put Morian's Waste Shard onto his caster, because that means his caster's off the table, and he only has 1 wizard in his army, so that means that his wizard will not show up until turn number 2. So that might prove to be kind of fatal for my opponent. But you know, he's trying out and experimenting new builds, so more power to him. And these guys are located on the far right hand side of the table, so that way he will not forget about them. Alright, so that takes us to the top of turn number 1, and I managed to win the initiative in this battle report, so I will be going first. And as you can see in this photo, the first thing I do is I march everything forward as quickly as I possibly can. I am playing a Chaos Legion army. There is no frills or finesse with this army. They want to get across the battlefield as quickly as possible and pretty much smash your face in with a battle axe of some sort. So as you can see in the top of the screen there, I've moved up my entire army forward using the forest on my left hand side to protect my flank, as well as the hill on the right hand side to protect my right hand flank. Pretty much I move up the Tallyman, the Dustman, I move up Horticolic Slimex and Mulch. I also move up my General Hastur the King in yellow, so that way he's behind those forests there, so that way he doesn't get shot off the table with some Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers. At the same time, on the far right hand side, I march up my Inglorious, my 3 Nurglings, up 8 inches, closer to those Illyrian Reavers, so that way my right hand flank is protected. And that pretty much makes my move phase on this one. Here's a close-up of Hastur the King in Yellow, the Tallyman, the Dustman, Festus Empowered, as well as Horticolic, Slimex, and Mulch moving across the battlefield as quickly as they can, so that way they can engage those High Elves. And here's a close-up of the Inglorious, moving towards those 5 Illyrian Reavers and taking them out of action, or try to hold them down as far long as I can because I need to flip my right-hand flank. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. Alright, so for most of the magic phase, I actually had a pretty good one on this one. I did try to cast a couple of spells from the Lore of Death, but unfortunately Hastur's spells were dispelled by my opponent for most part on that one. So because I didn't do very well on that, despite having no wizard on the table, he actually rolled pretty high for all of his dispel dice, so that was pretty amazing. However, I did manage to have a couple of spells for Festus. The first one I got off was his Shrouding ability, so that way everything within 12 inches of him has -2 to hit against because they are in hard cover. And perhaps the most dramatic of all the spells was my War Shrine. So Horticolic Slimex gets to use his War Shrine ability, Giver of Glory. I managed to get 2 Eye of the God chart rolls for 2 of my members who actually have that special rule. I decided to put on Festus as well as my champion for the Dustman. For Festus, you earn +1 attack, so because that he's a little bit deadlier in close combat. However, the biggest effect from that spell was for my champion. He rolled a 12, which means he got Apothis on this one. And how that special rule works is that he has to take a leadership test. If he fails it, he becomes a Chaos Spawn, which is no good. However, if he passes it, like I did in this picture, as you can see, he automatically becomes a Demon Prince. So the champion for the unit dies, but he is reborn again as Lord Tremendous, my Demon Prince for my army. So as you can see on the right-hand side, I'm using my Demon Prince of Zneach on this one because I don't have another spare Demon Prince of Nurgle lying around. So because of that, he'll do just fine. I deploy him over to the far right-hand side about 6 inches, like it says in the rules, so that way I can start using him. And just like that, my army now has 2 Demon Princes, which is pretty awesome. And considering that War Shrine has done this twice already in 2 different battle reports, I'm just surprised I haven't taken a Chaos War Shrine earlier because that thing is freaking amazing. So with the magic phase over with, we skip the shooting phase because I don't have one. I'm a Chaos Warriors army, and there is no close combat because nobody's engaged, so we go to the bottom of turn number 1 for the High Elves. So we go to the bottom of turn number 1 for the High Elves, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. The first thing he decides to do is declare a charge with his Illyrian Reavers, and he successfully charges forward directly into my Nurglings. Those Illyrian Reavers are carrying spears, so it could be pretty deadly for my Nurglings, but like I said before, my plan is to use them as a speed bump to slow those Illyrian Reavers down. Because of all his spells, I can use Lord Tremendous in order to intercept those guys later on because he's a brand new Demon Prince and he's kitted out to kill. For the rest of his army, he just moves them up forward just a normal 5 inches. He doesn't march anything forward. He moves up the Silver Blades as well as his Dawn Guard as well as the Caledorian Rangers, using the forest as well as the hills for his 2 elite fighting units and having his flanks protected by them for his Lothern Sea Guard. I think he does that so that way he's a little bit closer, so that way he can engage me with shots from his bows. Because Lothern Sea Guard carrying regular bows, not long bows, and so because of that, the range is only 24 inches. And that pretty much makes up his move phase on this one. And I do have to apologize, I lied about that. My opponent also marched up his general on the left-hand side there, so Timon Lainel on his Star Dragon is located on the left-hand flank, staring down the barrel directly at my general, Hastur the King in Yellow. Which is perfectly fine because I could use my Demon Prince to protect my left-hand flank against a dragon. The only problem is that, well, like I said before, it's a dragon, and it's a High Elf Princess carrying a Star Lance, which ignores armor save and has +3 strength on the charge, so I do have to worry about that. Here's a close-up of his infantry forces moving up 5 inches to fill the gap, so getting ready to accept the charge or to charge against my advancing Chaos Legion. And here is a close-up of his Illyrian Reavers charging directly into my Inglorious. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. We actually skip the magic phase, I apologize for that, and we go directly into the shooting phase. And the reason why we skip the magic phase is because my opponent's wizard is not on the table right now. He is with his unit of spearmen acting as ambushers by using Moranian's Way Shard. So like I said before, it was kind of a controversial tactic to give that shard to his wizard, But then again, like I said, I think it's because my friend First Prince Belair is experimenting with using that magical item. And plus, if you had an ambushing wizard with the lore of high magic attacking you, that could be kind of deadly if it's done in the right circumstances. However, in the shooting phase, he does open up and concentrate fire with his Lothern Seaguard, as well as all 3 of his Eagle Claw bolt throwers, and only managed to kill 4 of my Dustmen. And the reason why that was the case is because, like I said, all my guys are behind cover. He has to roll 6s in order to hit him for the most part, and any shots that don't get funneled out with that roll, I just had to take the injuries as usual. Just the sheer amount of firepower that I got killed my 4 Dustmen. And I think it's a combination of both the bolt throwers firing with the repeating shots, as well as a Lothern Seaguard. I think it was 2 and 2, if I'm perfectly honest with that, if I remember correctly. So yeah, lose those 4 guys. However, I do pass my panic check. My guys don't run because we are chaos and all is good. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And as you can see in this photo, my Nurglings actually do pretty well. I managed to kill 3 of the Illyrian Reavers. They do manage to put 5 wounds onto my Nurglings, so that part was kind of rough. I lose a base of them and get a floating wound put on the second one. But the fact that these guys have pretty much taken out 3 Illyrian Reavers just by themselves is giving me some hope because, like I said, I'm acting as a speed bump in order to stop these Illyrian Reavers from outflanking me and causing some problems in my back rank. And that's exactly what Nurglings are designed to do, to be chaff. And I was actually surprised that they actually caused as much damage as they did. So luckily for me, I think what it was is that my opponent actually won. Luckily for me though, I am playing demons and demons don't break, and since Nurgle is in ascendance with the Chaos Legion rule, I don't have to worry about instability rules, so that part was kind of nice as well. So that pretty much makes up turn number 1 for the High Elves. So with turn number 1 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Legion of Nurgle, and this photo is taken after the movement phase, and I decide not to move forward at all. I decide that I want my opponent to come to me, just because it kind of behooves me to do so. If I can get that Shrouding spell off on a constant basis, my opponent will have minuses to hit against me in ranged combat, which means that the only way he can really finish me off is by engaging me in close combat, and that's pretty much what my plan is. I was still too far away in order to charge my units, and the last thing I want to do is to be caught out in the open where I can be outflanked by his swordsman on the left hand side as well as his white lines on the right hand side. So that's the reason why I didn't move forward. It is kind of a hesitant move to make because my opponent will have ambushers pop up the next turn and I have to deal with those guys. So the way I saw it, yes, I'll be in the middle of the table. Yes, I could potentially be caught in a pincer attack if my opponent decides to deploy a spearman in my back ranks. But at the same time though, I'm also hoping that my magical abilities as well as having my high toughness -1 to hit against units will survive against things like that in close combat. So that's why I don't move anything. The only thing that really moves is my Demon Prince Lord Tremendous. He marches over to the left hand side 16 inches to catch up with Hastur the King in Yellow, so that way I can defend my left flank against Tywin and his Star Dragon. The way I see it, he's going to have to charge either my General, Hastur the King in Yellow, or Lord Tremendous. Either one that he charges, that sets him up for a flank charge to be attacked on the flank by either one of those demon princes. So that's my goal. Having 2 monsters against 1 monster can really help me out in that situation. And that pretty much makes my move phase on this one. Here's a close-up of my 2 demon princes getting ready to take on Tywin Lainel on top of his Star Dragon. And here's a close-up of my infantry forces as well as my War Shrine just standing their ground and getting ready to do a countercharge when the moment strikes. And finally, here is another close-up of my Nurglings standing their ground because that's what they do best. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the top of the magic phase. And as you can see from all the pink cards on the battlefield, I had a pretty successful magic phase. Like I said, Morarion is not, his wizard Tytos Lainel is not on the battlefield, so because that First Prince Belair loses out on his 4-up bonus to dispel any of my spells that I try to cast. So because of that, I pretty much dominated the magic phase. Not to mention, I think I rolled a 12 for my magic dice, so because of that, I had a lot of dice I could throw around for the most part. So for the most part, what I mainly did was just kind of spend time just buffing up my units for, like I said before. I do manage to cast what's called Giver of Glory for my War Shrine. I was only able to give it to 1 person this time, so I decided to put it on Horticolic Slimex. I gave him a +1 to his armor save, so that's always a good thing. Then I also managed to cast Fleshy Abundance, I believe. That's what the name of the spell. I put it on to my Dustmen, giving them +1 to their regen. So now these guys are carrying 4 regeneration, which is pretty awesome as well. I also managed to get the Shroudlings off and as well, which allows me to protect myself from -2 strike against ranged combat. And then the final reason why is because from the Reign of Chaos chart, I did manage to get that 12. I got Demonic Surge, which means that all of my demon units on my battlefield have a 1-up to their ward save for this turn. So now all my demons are carrying 4 ward saves, which is pretty epic. Like I said, very, very powerful magic phase this turn. And during the combat phase, if you can freaking believe it, my Inglorious decided to stand their ground and stuck it to those Illyrian Reavers. They do manage to put a wound onto one of my Nurglings, so that's kind of rough. But at the same time, though, I do kill one Illyrian Reaver, which means I win combat for the most part because he's got only a quarter strength left, which means for him to stand his ground, he has to roll Insane Courage. And as you can see in this photo, he did not do that. So because of that, the Illyrian Reaver just drives off the battlefield and just keeps on fleeing. Just to let you guys know now, you will not see that Illyrian Reaver ever again in the photos because he does eventually run off the battlefield, so I'm saving myself some time taking those photos because it's not really that important. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the bottom of the turn for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes us to the bottom of turn number 2 for the High Elves, and as you can see, this photo is after the movement phase. And what ended up happening is my opponent decided to charge forward with his military forces for his infantry units. Unfortunately for him, though, he failed all of his charges for all 3 units. Like I said, it's a pretty long space between myself as well as my opponent. I think it was 13 or 14 inches away, so it's really, really hard to get those charges off. So as you can see, his units are kind of scattered a little bit in kind of like a wave pattern because of failed charges. He sends his Caledorian Rangers originally against my War Shrine. Unfortunately for him, though, he failed that charge, so that he just ends up on the other side of that hill that's protecting my forces. He also decides to do a charge with his Sword Masters, but unfortunately he wasn't able to make the distance towards my Tallyman, so because of that, they don't really charge the distance as well. Now, he does charge forward with Tywin Lainel against my character, Hastur the King in Yellow. So because of that, that Prince on the Star Dragon does successfully charge directly into him. So because of that, my Demon Prince will need to fight against his dragon. Now that does open up his flank from attack from Lord Tremendous on my left-hand side. But in order to remedy that situation in the remaining movements phase, as you can see, his ambushes arrive. On the bottom of the screen there, he decides to deploy his forces right at the table's edge as well, moves them up 5 inches forward, so that way he can put pressure on the back rank of the Tallyman, or on Lord Tremendous, or onto Hastur the King in Yellow. So because of that, I might have to redirect my Prince to attack those guys, so that way my Demon Prince's own can attack from the back by Spearmen, which is kind of a good idea because it prevents me from charging directly into my opponent's general's flank. In the center of the table there, the Lothern Seaguard, they did not charge forward. They actually did a combat reform real quick, and they went into a column formation, 6 wide and 4 deep, so that way he has rank bonuses, because my friend Fresh Prince Belair knows that combat's coming soon, and so that's why he puts him in a column formation, and he just moves them up their normal 5 inches as well. Now, they won't be able to shoot this turn, however, that does prepare them for close combat, because Lothern Seaguard can do both very, very well, and that pretty much makes up the move phase on this one. Here's a close-up of my Demon Prince getting engaged by Prince Tywin Lainel against the top of the screen there. You can also see that the Silver Sentinels with his mage Titus Lainel is also on the bottom of the screen, and Lord Tremendous has a very difficult choice. Does he support my general in close combat against a dragon, or does he take on these spearmen? And so because of that, I'm going to have a really difficult decision to make in the next turn. And here's a close-up of his infantry forces moving forward, failing to charge for his 2 elite units, his 2 special choices, but his core unit does a combat reform and get ready for close combat, which is a pretty smart idea. So with the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And once again, I do have to apologize for this because I forgot to take a picture of both the magic as well as the shooting phases. And the reason why I failed to do that is because, to be perfectly honest, my opponent's magic phase was uneventful. I dispelled all of his dice, so because of that, I think that's the reason why I didn't take any photos of it. At the same time, his shooting phase wasn't really that effective because everything is -2 to hit against, which means he has to roll 6 up. I think 1 or 2 shots might have gone through, but my demonic save on my Nurglings, on my Tallyman, pretty much stopped any injury taking place. So I'm sorry about not taking a photo about it, but that's pretty much what happened. So not much really happened during that phase. However, during the combat phase between Tywin Lainel as well as my general Hastur the King in Yellow was pretty brutal. I think I managed to put a wound onto Tywin Lainel because I concentrated my attacks against his general. However, his general as well as his dragon managed to put 4 wounds onto my character, which is pretty devastating because he only has 1 wound left before he gets destroyed. So that part was absolutely terrifying to see that happen. So I do manage to kill Tywin Lainel, which is kind of nice. His general is dead, which is awesome. But at the same time, though, my friend has to take a roll on the monster reaction chart to see exactly what happens to a Star Dragon. And unfortunately for him, he rolled a 1, which is the result, which means now that his dragon is subject to stupidity. So it's kind of good because that means his dragon is not as effective as it could be because it's stupid for the rest of the battle. But at the same time, though, my general is engaged with a dragon, and that is terrifying because this is a Star Dragon, and Star Dragons are kitted out to kill, which is pretty brutal. And that pretty much makes up the combat phase on this one. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Legion of Nurgle, and smelling blood in the water, I decide to charge forward. I don't care that I have spearmen in my back ranks, I want blood, and I'm going to spill it because I want to destroy these High Elves before they do anything else. So the first thing I do is I declare a charge with my Tallyman, and those guys go roaring across the battlefield directly into the Silver Blades. So because of that, that Swordmaster unit is now engaged with my Plague Bearers. Now the reason why I've done this is for 2 reasons. One, I'm doing this to protect my general as well as the left-hand flank of my army. That unit is, organized to be a tar pit unit. So while Swordmasters are known for destroying and atomizing units in close combat, he's going to have to chop through a lot of my my Plague Bearers in order to do that. Not to mention, if I can get off the Shroudling's ability off of my Plague Bearers, my opponent will have to have -2 against with his hits, which means that he has to hit me on 5s and higher in order to attack those Plague Bearers. So that's the reason why I kind of charge him in that way. Not to mention, I don't have 3 ranks of attacks because I'm not running a horde formation, but I do have poisonous attacks, and I have a 5-up on my poison attacks because of my lesser locus on my Herald, so that kind of does even it out. The only thing I got to worry about is that Swordmasters actually attack in 3 ranks, not 2, regardless of the formation that he takes. And the reason why is because Fresh Prince Belair is killing High Elves, and High Elves with their special rules, I believe it's Martial Valor? No, Valor. Valor of Ages? I forgot the name of the special rule, but it gives them the ability to attack with additional rank, which means that 3 ranks get to attack. So that's kind of terrifying as well. At the same time, I also charge in the Dustman, which has Festus the Leechlord directly into the Caledorian Rangers because I need to kill those guys and get rid of those elite units. I'm pretty much concentrating my attacks on his special choices so that way I can take out the real killers in his unit. He does have a lot of core, but core is not as effective as his special units are, so I'm concentrating on that. Now I do try to charge forward with Horticolic Slimex, but unfortunately for me, I do fail my charge roll, so because of that, he only stumbles a couple inches forward, and at the same time, I march my Nurglings over to the right-hand side, so that way I can lend some support if I need to. And finally, on the very bottom of the screen, I decide to risk it all and charge Lord Tremendous directly into the flank of the Star Dragon, so that way there's 2 Demon Princes against 1 Star Dragon, and hopefully I can make the combat a little bit more even. So with the movement phase over with, let's go and talk about the close-ups real quick. So here's a close-up of Lord Tremendous as well as Hastur, the King in Yellow, engaging that Star Dragon. 2-to-1 odds is pretty good, and I'm thinking that dragon is going to die here pretty quick. Here's a close-up of my Tallyman, charging directly into the Silver Blades, and imagine they get those guys in close combat as well. I'm pretty excited to see exactly how this combat goes for the most part. And here's a close-up of the Dustman with Festus the Leechlord charging directly into the Caledorian Rangers, engaging those guys in close combat as well. And finally, here's a close-up of Horticolic Slimex and Mulch filling their charge, and here's a close-up of my Nurglings from the Inglorious moving across the battlefield as quickly as they can. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And for the most part, during the magic phase, most of my spells were dispel primarily for the most part. However, I do try to cast the Shroudling's ability off, and I do manage to get that spell off, which is pretty awesome as well. So because of that, everything within 12 inches, which is my Tallyman as well as my Dustman, they have -2 to hit against because they're basically in hard cover. That part was pretty cool. The only problem with that, though, in order to get that off, I miscast on that one. So because of that, I do miscast 3.
Klaatu, Marata,
which erupts into a massive explosion that pretty much rips through the entirety of my Dustman. I think I managed to lose 2 or 3 of my Dustman by the time it was all said and done when that explosion happened, which was strength 10. So as you can see in this photo, Festus Leechlord does take a wound for his trouble, and I do lose 2 or 3 more Dustmen. The rest of them do survive pretty well, and the reason why is because I have that awesome regen save on these guys because of the healing elixirs that he has. It's a magical attack, not flame attack, so because of that, they still get the regen scores, which part is pretty awesome as far as I'm concerned as well. At the same time, I do manage to kill 3 of the Caledorian Rangers as well, so that's 3 less white lines I have to worry about. And needless to say, that pretty much takes away my magic phase because all my power dice were gone. However, I did get really lucky though because Festus the Leechlord did not get sucked up into the warp, and so because of that, I'm just kind of counting my blessings at this point. So with the magic phase over with, we skip the shooting phase because homie don't play that, and we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, my opponent unfortunately just kind of flubbed his attack for a Star Dragon, so because he wasn't unable to cause any injuries onto Hastur the King in Yellow. However, Hastur was able to put 2 wounds on directly into the dragon, and Lord Tremendous does try to attack as well, but unfortunately for him, he was unable to wound the dragon, so the dragon for the most part only taking 2 wounds. However, with a charge, as well as a flank and the 2 wounds, does cause the dragon to break. The dragon runs, I pursue forward with Hastur the King in Yellow, and I manage to run the dragon down and kill him right off the bat, so that part was pretty epic as well. I then do a combat reform real quick with Lord Tremendous, turning him 180, so that way he can face against the Silver Sentinels, as well as Tytos Lainel. Meanwhile, on the center of the table, combat between the Silver Blades as well as my Tallyman was pretty brutal for the most part. He managed to kill 9 of my Plague Bearers and only managed to kill 5 of his Sword Masters. Now, normally, because of the difference in combat results due to the unstable rules for demons, I would actually lose 4 more of my demons from this unit. However, because I am playing Chaos Legion, Nurgle is in Ascendance, which means that the unstable rule is not really part of the rules anymore. So because I can ignore the unstable rules, so because of that, my Tallymen are just perfectly fine. And like I said, I have a lot more Plague Bearers than he does Sword Masters, and hopefully I can just whittle him down in a war of attrition and keep that unit tied up in close combat. However, close combat between these White Lions of Trace as well as my Dustman was completely one-sided. He only managed to kill 1 of my warriors, and the reason why is because of the Shrouding ability. Most of my opponent was just kind of flubbing most of his rolls to attack against. However, my Dustmen are carrying additional hand weapons, so they have 3 attacks base, as well as Festus having 1 additional attack as well. And Festus does issue a challenge against my opponent's champion for that unit. He does accept. Needless to say, Festus just curb stomps that White Lion into oblivion, earning himself +1 to his toughness as well because of his ability from the Eye of the Gods table. After that, I managed to kill off 6 more White Lions just from the number of poison attacks as well as normal attacks from my Dustman. So needless to say, I win by a landslide on this one, and my opponent is forced to take a break test. Unfortunately for my friend, he rolls like an 11, I think he is, to flee, so he just flees right straight to the back. And since he only has a quarter of his troops left, he will need to roll Insane Courage if he wants them to rally. And to be honest, I don't think he's rolling Snake Eyes anytime soon. I test to restrain a course so that way I don't chase after him, and I do manage to pass. I do a quick combat reform and angle my Dustman to the left-hand side, as also reorganize them into a column formation because of all the losses I've taken. My plan here is to charge directly into the left-hand flank of the Lothern Sea Guard, and hopefully I can destroy those guys as well. And that pretty much makes it the combat phase for this turn. Alright, so that takes directly to bottom of turn number 3 for the High Elves, and this photo is taken after the movement phase. And as you can see on the top of the screen, bottom of the screen, my friend decides to declare a charge with his Silver Sentinels. Those guys go charging directly into Lord Tremendous. So because of that Lord Tremendous, my newly summoned Demon Prince will be engaging those High Elf Spearmen. At the same time, he also decides to do a quick reform real fast with his Lothern Sea Guard, and he turns in such a way so that way he's staring directly down the barrel at my Dustman. So that way I have to charge him head on and not catch him in the flank. And as you can see at the top of the screen, his Caledorian Rangers do not recover from their panic test, and they just flee off the table, netting some much needed earned points for my army. So here's a close-up of Lord Tremendous getting ready to fight the Silver Sentinels, and I'm really looking forward to that combat because Demon Princes are excellent against light infantry. And here's a close-up of my Tallymen still engaged with the Silver Blades, as well as his Dawn Guard getting ready to receive the charge from my Dustman. During the magic phase, my friend decides to sink a couple of his dice. I think he takes 4 dice and he casts Drain Magic off onto the battlefield as well. Now, in case you're not aware how Drain Magic works, what it does is it's really good for removing hexes and also putting augments onto units as well, getting rid of remain in play spells, as well as any spells that have been cast by your enemy by the previous turn. So as you can see that the little card that had the Shroudlings little notations on it, he dispels my Shroudlings abilities. So because of that, none of my units receive the -2 to hit against because they're no longer in hard cover. Pretty much the, decaying tendrils of the plant life of the Garden of Nurgle just kind of wither away and go back into the ground. Which is good for my friend because that means he can start shooting and not to worry about having -2 to hit against, and same thing with close combat as well. However, in order to get that spell off, he does cast a miscast on this one, and he miscasts 6 with a small explosion on this one.
Klaatu! Veranda!
So because of that, his Archmage Tytos does suffer a wound for that one, and he also loses 4 of his High Elves in the process of doing so as well. And I think he also managed to put a wound onto Lord Tremendous as well with that explosion. I think I was unable to stop the ward save on that part, so that part was kind of devastating as well. And needless to say, his magic phase is pretty much done with at that point. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. So during the shooting phase, he concentrates fire with his Lothern Seaguard against my Dustman. He does manage to kill 3 of my Chaos Warriors at the same time. And the reason why he only killed so little is because I am toughness 4. He's using strength 3 short bows, so he has to roll 5s in order to wound me. He got a lot of hits, but it was most of his dice were just kind of not rolling the 5 up in order to wound. So because of that, it was kind of lackluster considering. And it was kind of sad too because my opponent did invest quite a bit in order to dispel my Shroudling's bound spell as well in order to stop that, so that part was kind of rough. However, as a consolation prize though, he does manage to shoot as well as hit Haster, the King in Yellow, and manage to kill my Demon Prince as well, so that part was pretty devastating watching my general die. Luckily for me, none of my units were within 6 inches of him, so I don't have to worry about taking panic tests, but at the same time though, my general just died and that was pretty horrifying. However, close combat though between Lord Tremendous as well as this unit of Spearmen was absolutely one-sided for the most part. They weren't able to cause any wounds to me. However, I was able to kill 9 more of his Spearmen at the same time. I managed to roll a 6 for my Thunderstop, managed to kill all those guys with those 6 attacks, and I think I managed to kill 3 more with his regular handed weapons as well. So because of that, when you combine with the other 4 that died from the explosion that took place in the magic phase, needless to say, my opponent just lost by a landslide. He does need Insane Courage in order to stay, which he does not roll. So as you can see, his spearmen do flee. I do pass my leadership test in order to restrain. They roll off the battlefield, so because that nets me some points of those guys as they're fleeing for their lives. And as you can see, I do a quick combat reform with Lord Tremendous, turning around to face down the barrel towards the rest of my opponent's army as well. Meanwhile, combat between my Swordmaster, my Plague Bearers against my opponent's Swordmasters was a massacre. I do manage to kill 4 great swordsmen of Koeth when it was all said and done, but in exchange though he managed to kill 8 of my Plague Bearers as well, so that part was kind of rough. And the reason why I was able to kill so many is because of the Shroudling's ability. The Shroudling spell was gone, so the -2 to hit against was gone, because now my opponent only has -1 to hit against, and he just kind of chopped down my Plague Bearers like it's nobody's business. The only silver lining, like I said before, is that I don't have to worry about taking break tests because demons are unbreakable, and since Nurgle is in Descendants, I don't have to worry about losing anybody due to instability rules. So that part's kind of nice. And at the same time, I'm tying up this unit of Swordmasters, so that way they're pretty much tied up with my Plague Bearers for most of the battle. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of the turn. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Legion of Nurgle, and this photo is after the movement phase, and as you can see, I charge in forward with everything I have. I do charge in the Dustman as well as with Horticolic Slimex, and both those units successfully charge directly into the Dawn Guard, so because of that, those Lothern Seaguard are now engaged in close combat. I then march up both Lord Tremendous on the left-hand side, march him up all the way to the left-hand side so that way he can charge directly into those War Machines, and I also move up my Nurglings on the right-hand side as well because, you know, that's what I really have left. And like I said before, everything else is engaged in close combat. Here's a close of my Demon Prince Lord Tremendous getting ready to charge directly into some High Elf Bolt Throwers, and he's really about to bring the pain because those things are absolutely terrifying. And here's a close-up of my Tallyman, still engaged with the Silver Blades from the Swordmasters of Hoeth, and I'm slowly whittling that unit down, so it'll be kind of neat to see exactly what happens by the end of the battle. Here's another close-up of my Dustman as well as my War Shrine, Horticolic Slimex, as well as Mulch. Both those units are now charged directly into the Lothern Seaguard, and I'm really excited about that one because core choices don't stand a chance against Chaos Warriors. And here's a close-up of my 2 Nurglings from the Inglorious, bring up the rear and trying to cross the battlefield as quick as they can because they want to kill something as well. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And magic was a wash. I rolled the Snake Eyes, so nothing happens there. So that takes us directly to the combat phase, and as you can see in this photo, the fight between the Dustman as well as the Lothern Seaguard was completely one-sided. Horticolic Slimex does declare a challenge against my opponent's Battle Standard Bearer, which is Tanis Lainel. And Tanis Lainel, the Battle Standard Bearer, decides to accept the challenge as well. They both fight out in combat. He was unable to cause any wounds onto Horticolix, but Horticolix was able to kill Tanis Lainel as well, so his Battle Standard Bearer is now gone. He directed all of his attacks. I think it was his chariot, his the Shrine Bearers that was able to put the last wound onto Tanis Lainel, killing him right off the bat. The rest of the combat was between my Dustman as well as Festus the Leech Lord against the rest of the Seaguard. And as you can see there, they managed to kill 2 of my Chaos Warriors, but in the end I'm able to kill 9 of his Seaguard at the same time, so that part was pretty brutal. And he does lose his combat score on this one, so he does have to take a break test. He does fail his brakes test. I pursued with both of my units, decided to chase him down, and as you can see in this photo, he rolled a 4 in order to escape, and I rolled a 7. So both of my guys just charged 4 and just destroy the rest of the Lothran Sea Guard. I believe it was my Dustman that rolled a 7. I think Horticolex Slimex rolled a 6 because since that unit was destroyed, he can run through with the rest of his posse as well. And they're right there, right at the base of the hill where the bolt throwers are located at. Meanwhile, a combat between the Swordmasters as well as my Plague Bearers for the Tallyman was, of course, one side again. I think I managed to kill 3 more of his Swordmasters, so that part was kind of cool. And I think he killed 5 more of my Plague Bearers, if I'm completely honest. So because of that, I do lose combat, but because I'm demons, I don't break, so we stand our ground. I do a combat reform real quick and put my Plague Bearers into a calm formation, so that way I get more rank bonuses. I do pass that, so because of that, my units are now fighting against a calm formation of Swordmasters. And like I said, I'm slowly whittling that unit down, and that's the only thing I really can ask for my army to do. So that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 4 for the High Elves, and as you can see, there is no movement taking place for his army. All of his infantry units are either dead or engaged in close combat. He only has 1 unit of infantry left, which is his Swordmasters, so because of that, not much is really taking place in this photo. And here's a close-up of his Swordmasters of Hoth, still engaged with my Plague Bearers. And that pretty much makes it the move phase. So with the move phase over with, we skip the magic phase because my opponent doesn't have any casters, and we go directly to the shooting phase. And as you can see in this photo, my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air decides to concentrate fire with all 3 Rains of Caledor, and he fires the single shot bolt directly into Lord Tremendous. All 3 of those bolts do hit, and all 3 of those bolts do wound. I believe the first 2 cost 2 wounds, and the last one cost 3 wounds, so because of that, my Demon Prince that got newly summoned just gets skewered to death by High Elf bolt throwers. So normally this would disappoint me, but like I said, that's a newly summoned character. He doesn't cost any points for my opponent. It's just free points going down the drain without any worries, so that part was kind of cool. But at the same time though, it does kind of pain me to see Lord Tremendous getting riddled by High Elf bolt throwers. And finally, the combat phase, my opponent does manage to kill 4 more of my Plague Bearers. However, my Plague Bearers was able to kill the remainder of the Swordmasters of Hoth, just destroying that unit completely. And ladies and gentlemen, that takes directly to the end of the game. The Chaos Legion wins this one. My friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air decides to surrender at this point because the only thing he has left are 3 bolt throwers, and so he doesn't see the point in carrying on. So with that being said, we're going to go directly to the after action report because this battle report is now officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, now it's time for the after action report. This is part of the battle report. We talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the after action report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 48, and ended up being a victory for yours truly. So for my losses, I lost Haster the King in Yellow, Lord Tremendous, as well as the Dustman Champion. My friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air, he lost Timon Lainel and his Dragon Fel Raccoon. He lost his Archmage Tytos Lainel, Tanis Lainel, the Dawn Guard, this Lothran Sea Guard army, the Steel Legion, the Silent Striders, the Silver Blades, as well as the Caledorian Rangers. And the reason why I was able to do this is because turn 1 and turn 2 of the Magic Phase pretty much saved my life in this battle report. Shroudlings made it almost impossible for my opponent to hit me in my units during the shooting as well as the close combat phase. If it wasn't for that spell and those abilities with those buffs from -2 to hit against for my opponent, this battle would turn out definitely really different. It's surprising to see how deadly a Chaos Legion of Nurgle can possibly be, especially when you use Festus Leech Lord Empowered in order to make that happen. Now, I did take a lot of losses in terms of life from my units, so I do lose a lot of individual fighters for each of my units. But unfortunately, my opponent was just able to finish off any one unit in particular. He kind of spread out most of his damage for most of my lines. It was kind of sad to lose my Demon Prince, Haster, as well as Lord Tremendous, but you know, that's pretty much how it works when you're going up against High Elf bolt throwers. And just as a bonus, I will always take a War Shrine in my Chaos Army from now on. That Giver or Glory spell is just too amazing. And this is the second battle report I've gotten so far where I've got another Demon Prince from one of my champions passing his Apothis roll, so that part's really cool. To be honest, I really love this list so far. It's very durable, very destructive in the magic phase, and absolute killer in close combat, and I'm having a blast playing these guys. It kind of makes me nostalgic from the good old days of classic Warhammer Fantasy Battle, where you could, you know, have like the Legion rules, where you had Beastmen, you had Demons, you had Chaos Warriors, all in the same army. Needless to say, this was a very fun game against an amazing opponent, and I'm looking forward to the rematch. As always, you guys, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated. Also, check us out on Facebook, blogger.com, as well as Instagram for all the latest grades and news about the hobby aspect of our channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.